Hello, I'm Leanne from Crafters Companion. In this little video tutorial, we're going to have a look at how we can create custom backgrounds with our Spectrum Sparkle pens that have the most beautiful intense shimmer. And then we're also going to have a look at how we can actually use our pens to physically stamp a background as well, so we can stamp with them. They're so versatile, and you think you're going to find this really easy. So we're going to get straight to it and have a look at how we create our first background. I've got a piece of watercolour card, and I've just done that really small because you don't want to watch me doing a really big piece. That would take forever. And we're going to have a look at a couple of different techniques. So the first one's going to be some random splodging, and then we're going to do some bands of colour. So first of all, we're just going to add the colour on here. So I've just got two of my favourite colours. They've featured a lot, and I make no apologies for that. So I've got pink garnet, and I've got aquamarine. And I like it because they actually mix together beautifully as well. So they'll make a lovely purple colour. So you can see I'm just randomly splodging on my pink garnet here into various areas. And I'm not being precise about that. I've got different kind of splodges. I've got some little drier bits here and there. All of them have got glitter in, but that's just making a little bit of a mess. And then I'm going to go in between, and I'm going to do exactly the same with my aquamarine. There we go. Now there are a couple of different things you can do here, and actually I'm just going to reach down and get my little water ball. I've got a little spritzer ball here. There we go. I can spritz it if I like, and when I spritz it, can you see how those colours intensify and start to move? So I can really wet that and just let it do its own thing, if that's what you want, and you'll get a nice result from that. Or I can also use a flat brush and help it along its way by just patting that colour around to create my background effect. And the choices are yours. You can have it as random or as controlled as you like. It really just depends on what your preferred choice is and how intense you want the colour to be. If you want to go back in with a little bit extra colour, you can absolutely do that. That's not going to hurt your pen at all. And drag that around. And you can pick up some water and plop that in there and just kind of smooch it around, help it on its way. Okay, so that's the first technique. Now, I know you're probably thinking that doesn't look very great at the minute, but it's going to come to life in a second. So the first thing I'm going to do is dry it. When you're drying, you can dry from the back as well, and that prevents it from curling too much. So we'll just do it both ways, and eventually it'll flatten itself out, and all of the sparkle will become obvious, and you can see as it dries it flattens itself down lovely. And just at home, notice I'm using a heat tool here on top of a piece of acetate, my palette. Don't do that at home in case your acetate melts. Do as I say, not as I do. Use a proper heat mat. I can't find mine, hence the acetate, but I wouldn't recommend you do this at home. I would recommend that you do use the proper equipment. Now what I am doing is I'm just picking up the bits of water and ink that had strayed onto my palette there, and I'm just drying those into the same place. Now what I can do if I like, I'm just going to get a bit of kitchen roll here. I can also faux bleach. So if I just get a little bit of water and flick that on into some different places, just to get some more effect, and then just leave that for a little second. And then I'm going to take a piece of kitchen roll. I want a bigger piece. I'm just going to get a bit from here. This will do for now. And then blot. You can see how I get that lovely effect of the water droplets on there. So I can faux bleach that colour out as you would with standard watercolouring. I'm loving the way this is starting to build up. If I'm not happy with it and I want to move it a little bit more, I can go and spritz again, and that's just softened everything a little bit more. The more water, you see how that's become much more diffused. I'll just clean this water away before I get the heat gun out again, and then get the heat gun back on it before it runs away completely. If you've got any water that pools off on the side, you can just get that with a bit of tissue. And you can see the difference. So the first result I had was much more patchy by just spritzing quite a bit more water on there. Now this has become much more diffused result. And it just depends on what your preference is. Okay, now you can go back again if you want. So if you think, you know what, by doing that I've lost too much of the blue, I'm just going to straighten that out so it's not quite as wrinkly. There we go. Just manhandle the card. We've all done that before. If I wanted to add a little bit more blue in, I can do that. And then go and spritz that into place and it'll move. So you see, you can just keep building it up. And then I can drag that down and get those lovely kind of just little lines. So, you know, the choices are absolutely yours. You can keep building it up. What I would recommend is that you keep drying it between every time you do something, and then you won't lose the sparkle and you won't lose the effects that you like. So I'm going to stop after I've dried it this time because I think I've shown you enough of that for now. What I will do is pick it up and show you how beautiful the sparkle is all over the background though. Right, I'll just get that bit there. So you can see I've got my 4 bleaching in place. Get that bottle out of the way. If I just pick this up and move it so you can see that shimmer. Can you see that shimmer catching in there in the background? I hope so, because I can see it and it's absolutely stunning. I'm sure you can. It looks beautiful. So that's a lovely all over sparkly background that you can see there. What I can also do now that I've dried, it's very important that this is completely dry before this next step. What I can also do is use my pens as a rubber stamp. So I've just got here a very well loved and very well used rocker block, as you can see, with a little floral stamp that I've popped on there. And I'm just going to use that aquamarine pen that I've just used to make that background. And I'm just stroking the pen onto the rubber stamp. You don't need to be too careful because these backgrounds are very, very artistic and random and, you know, much more kind of altered in effect rather than pristine. And I do like that about it because it is a watercolour medium at the end of the day. So that's the sort of result we're going to get. So you can see I've just stroked that on there. Just want to get that going, make sure I've got plenty of ink coming through. Put a little bit more on here. Okay, that's enough for now. And then I'm going to do a quick huff on it, which you can't see, but that just means breathe. And then I'm going to stamp. And you can see how lovely that is. I'll just pick that up. You can see that flower in the background there. So you can really start to layer these up, and you can do some second generation stamping, which means just keep going. And the result lessens every time. So you can build up foreground and background, real dimension. You can see that. And if I want to clean my stamp, all I'm going to do is paint some water on it and the ink will come off, and then dry it up with a bit of kitchen roll so it's nice and dry. And then I'm just going to do exactly the same but with the pink. And then when they're dry, I'm really hoping you're going to be able to see how beautiful the glittery stamped outlines are against that glittery background. You can create some really fab effects doing this. So I've got my ink on. I'm going to huff, which is just breathe on it. When you do that, there's just enough moisture in your breath to reactivate the ink without saturating it. If you saturate it with water, it'll just all run away and you won't get a nice crisp outline. By breathing on it, there's enough moisture in your breath to reactivate that ink. So just give it a quick breathe. And then I'm going to stamp this one on. And look how fab that is. And I can do some second generation. Another quick breathe. And let's see how many impressions I can get out of that. There we go. And I'm just going to dry it quickly because when I dry that pink, you'll be able to see the sparkle, I hope, in the stamped outline, which looks beautiful. There we go. So if I just pick this up for you, and oh yes, you can see. I'm so happy you can. Look at the beautiful sparkle in the background there, but more importantly, look at the sparkle you've got in that stamped outline as well, with all of those different layers. Now that just looks, you know, like one of those beautiful kind of altered backgrounds, but when you start to put it into a project, that's when it really comes into its own. And then we've got another one here, which is exactly that technique and that flower. You can see the beautiful sparkle in the back, you can see that shimmer in the background there, and then all those little flowers on the stamped outline. This one looks incredible. Look at that. Look at the sparkle in there with those stamped outlines. It just looks fantastic, doesn't it? So you can just keep going. You can do it a full solid colour like that. You can layer it up with different colours. You can do bands of colour if you want to, and you can really just grunge it up and do something very different. So you can do all of your watercolour techniques, but have that added shimmer and sparkle in there.